These are the assembly instructions for my A-line advent calendar. For this advent calendar, there are 25 little houses. They all go together the same way. I'm going to start by decorating my front panel while it's still flat. I have some matte silver vinyl, a piece of well-used transfer tape, and I'm positioning my piece onto my blue base. And then I'm putting glue on the underside of my blue panel and then gluing it to one of the matching pieces. I just want to make sure that all the edges are nice and even. And then I have this square piece, so this is the bottom of my house. I'm just folding down on the score lines. I have my 2 chipboard pieces with the peaks, and then I have my 2 square pieces. I'm putting glue on one of the tabs on my white piece. I'm gluing the straight edge of my chipboard piece. I'm lining up the 2 edges of my chipboard piece with the 2 lines on my white base, and then I want the cut edge of my chipboard piece right along the score line of that tab. So now I'm doing that on the tab that's just across from it. I'm putting glue all over that tab, and then I'm matching up the edges of my chipboard piece. So next I'm putting glue on one of the other tabs. I'm taking my chipboard piece, I'm sliding it into the cutouts on my chipboard piece, and then gluing the tab along the bottom and sliding my tabs in on the other side as well. And I'm going to flip my piece around and putting glue on that 4th tab. And then I'm just clicking my front piece in place. And then I'm going in with my bone folder on the inside, and I'm just spreading the glue on those 4 tabs. So now I'm left with the roof pieces. So I'm just folding down on all the score lines. I'm putting glue on the tabs that are on either side of that rectangle that are between those 2 triangular pieces. I'm bringing my triangular piece right to the score line of the tab, and then I'm doing that on the other side as well. And then I'm putting glue on the 4 remaining tabs. I'm just folding my piece in so that the tabs are folded on the inside, and I'm just folding it so that the cut edge of my first rectangle is right along the score line of the tab. The cut edge is right along all those score lines all the way along. And then I'm going in with my bone folder and I'm just spreading all that glue. And then I have a piece of watercolor paper which I have scored and folded in half. I'm just putting glue on both rectangles that are at the top of my roof piece. And then I'm taking my watercolor paper and I'm matching up the score line at the peak of both of my pieces. So my watercolor piece overlaps a little bit over that roof piece, so I want it to be approximately the same amount on the left and the right. And then I'm going in with my bone folder and I'm just spreading that glue. And then I'm inserting my roof piece inside my little house piece, and that serves as a lid for my box. So that's one of them done. I have 25 to assemble the exact same way. The only difference will be the vinyl images that are on the front. I'm putting my triangular frame together. So the pieces that have the letters on them are part of the frame, and the chipboard pieces with the numbers of them are part of the shelving system within the frame. So I've just simply connected my pieces A, B, and C, and I've also connected my pieces D, E, F, and G. A is at the top, C is at the bottom. Next I'm taking some join pieces, so these are just pieces of 80-pound white cardstock. I'm using my craft mat to make sure that my pieces are nicely aligned because they can wobble a little bit within the join. And I'm just putting glue on the underside of my cardstock, layering it on top of the join without ever obstructing any of the cutouts. There should be thin border on the top and on the bottom, and I'm doing that with all 5 joins. So once I put the join pieces on the first set, I also did it exactly the same way on the second set. I should have 2 pieces that are exactly the same length that have the letter C on the bottom. So I'm just taking those 2 pieces, and I'm taking another one of my join pieces. I am folding it in half on the shorter side. So I'm holding it a little bit like a tent, and I'm putting glue on one half. So my C is at the bottom. So I've got my white pieces towards the right, and I'm lining up the score line of my join piece to the very top of my chipboard piece. And then I'm putting glue on the other side of that join piece, and with the white joins away from me, I'm lining up the other side. So when I have them folded together, my chipboard pieces are even. So I have my white pieces and the letter C on the outside of my joined frame pieces. So next I'm doing the same thing with my pieces that have the letter G on the bottom. I'm taking another one of those joined pieces. So this time I want those white pieces facing inwards. I'm putting glue on half of my joined piece, lining up the top of my left side piece of chipboard. Then I'm putting glue on the other half. Still with those white pieces inwards, I'm just gluing my other piece of chipboard to the other half. I want to make sure that all 3 layers are flush. My C piece fits inside my G piece like so. So next I'm working on my shelves. So I've got the piece that says number 1, and then I have another piece that has the number 1 on it. I'm covering the smaller piece in glue and just gluing it down, trying to center it. The edges at the top and the bottom are even, and it's centered horizontally as much as possible. So that's shelf number 1. Moving on to shelf number 2. I have a piece number 2 with the tabs, and then I have piece number 2 without any tabs and a little bit shorter. So I'm gluing those 2 together. So again, the edges on the top and the bottom are even, and the smaller panel is more or less centered on the longer one. So that's 1 and 2 done, and I'm just going to keep going. Shelf number 4 is the first one that has to have join pieces because of the length. The length of my chipboard is only 11 inches, so I had to have some join pieces. I deliberately put them away from one another, so I have a join piece on one side and then a join piece on the other side. So I've got my pieces joined together. I'm just gluing them on top, just making sure that everything is lined up nicely. So the piece with tabs for piece number 5 has 1 join, and without the tabs has 2 joins. So I'm just doing the exact same thing, making sure that they're solidly linked. I'm covering all 3 panels with glue. I'm just gluing them down to the base piece. And shelf number 6 goes together the same way. So next I'm working on piece number 7. Piece number 7 is actually not really a shelf. It's the very bottom of my triangle. So I'm going to use more of those white pieces to join, making sure that my pieces are lined up nicely and just gluing them together. So I'm doing that with both layers. So next I'm taking the arch I've created with the letter C at the bottom. I'm taking 2 join pieces, I'm folding in the center. I'm putting glue on 1/2, so from the score line to the edge, and then placing the join piece inside my arch, and the score line is right against the edge of my chipboard piece like so, and I'm doing that on the other side as well. So now working with my piece C, I'm just going to open it up at the top so it's in its triangular shape. I'm taking my shelf piece, so the smallest one, it's the one that has the 1s on it, and I'm just inserting it into those cutouts at the top. And so next I'm taking the second largest piece, the one that has the 2s, and I'm inserting it into the next series of holes. And then I have piece number 3, I'm doing the same thing, and I'm just working my way down my shape, inserting those pieces in. I've got the piece with the tabs on the bottom and the smaller piece on the top. Next I'm taking my pieces that have the letter G at the bottom. So this is the external piece and the reinforcement piece for the first panel that I've laid down. I'm using some Beacon 3-in-1 because it takes a little bit longer for it to dry. I'm covering the sides with Beacon 3-in-1. Now these are the sides that have the joins. And then I'm just placing that second layer on top, and I'm positioning it so that all those tabs go through the holes on both sides. I'm pushing all of those tabs all the way through. So while my glue is drying, I have these sewing clips, and I'm just using them to clip my pieces of chipboard together. So I'm just leaving those clips in place until my glue has a chance to dry. So I'm just rotating my piece so that we're looking at the bottom of my calendar. I have the 2 bottom pieces left for my frame. So these are the 2 pieces that have number 7 on them. So I'm starting on the right hand side, and I'm putting glue on that join piece. I'm taking the longer of my 2 number 7 pieces, and I want my piece to be flush with the edge of the first piece of chipboard on the side, and I'm going to do that on the left hand side as well. I'm putting glue on the bottom of the second piece labeled number 7. So I have my join pieces showing, and then I'm inserting it at the bottom and gluing it right down to piece number 7, and it should be a very tight fit. Again, I'm putting some clips just to make sure that everything stays in place. So next I have 2 sets of triangular pieces. I've already folded down on the score lines to make the tabs. One of the sets has a triangle that has even sides, and the 2 others have different sized triangles. They're mirror images of one another, and this one fits exactly on top here. So I'm putting glue on the underside of the tabs, and I'm gluing the tabs down to the top and right at the peak. I've just rotated my piece so that we're looking at the bottom. So this one has the shorter side towards the top of my advent calendar. This is the bottom of my advent calendar, and this is the longer side of the triangle. I'm putting glue on the underside of my tabs, and I'm just gluing that in place. And so where the sides meet on my third side of my triangle, I'm just gluing on the third one. I'll do the exact same thing on the back of my calendar. Next, I'm going to do some reinforcement. So I have these 2 pieces of chipboard, and I'm putting glue on the underside of both of them, and then I'm slipping them in right along that bottom, and I'm pushing it as far as it'll go against the wall. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of the piece, slipping it in, pushing it as far as it'll go against this wall, and I'll just add a little extra stability. I just cut off the edges of some of the scraps that I used to assemble this, and I've decided that this is the back of my advent calendar. So for the longer shelves, I wanted to add a little bit of stability. Just putting glue on the underside of these strips, and I'm more or less centering them, adding them to the back like so. So it's not something you'll see from the front, and it's at the bottom of the shelf, so you won't see it. And I'm doing that to the 3 shelves that have the join pieces. So I'm just putting glue on the underside. Out of the scraps, I was able to cut these strips that are 11 inches long and approximately 3/4 of an inch wide. They can be a little bit wider, it doesn't matter. And I'm just gluing them to the bottom shelf. So now I'm going to decorate my frame. I have some shelf liners, so I'm just putting glue on the underside of them and just gluing them down. So for the bottom shelf, because I've inserted those little support pieces, I'm gluing down the strip as I did for the other shelves. And then I have 2 little panels to cover up those pieces of chipboard. So next I have my side panels. There was a color in this paper pack called Astro Brights Grosser Craft. It's very close in color to my chipboard, and I covered the panels in white value vinyl. I'm just laying out my pieces. I have 3 identical pieces for both sides. I'm just making sure that all the cutouts for my notches match up, and then I'm going to glue them down. So next I have these little trim pieces. I have 3 of them, and they have a score line in the center. I'm just folding down on that score line. I'm going to put glue on the underside of them. I'm just adding it to the top here. So this is the one on the top, and then the 2 on the bottom. I have my frame all set up, and next I'm going to position my little houses on the shelves.